In early July of 1953, Mr. and Mrs. Huggin embarked on a 6-week summer vacation with their 3 young daughters from Winnipeg, Canada to Wade, Ontario. Their destination was the girls' grandparents' summer cabin, nestled in one of the most remote and untamed regions of Ontario. Situated amidst vast swampy forests, the cabin was located not far from Fox Lake, one of the largest lakes in Ontario. The family arrived late on July 4th, so they spent the evening settling into the cabin without any major activities. The following day, the adults planned to take the girls to Fox Lake for a day trip. As they prepared for the outing, gathering supplies and equipment, the 3 girls played outside the cabin. The remote location of the cabin meant there were no neighbors or other people nearby. Given the remote and secluded nature of their surroundings, it seemed perfectly normal for the girls to play outside without concerns of abduction or other dangers. The 2 older girls amused themselves in the front yard of the cabin, enjoying the freedom and tranquility of the wilderness around them. As the parents prepared to head to the lake, they checked on the girls intermittently while packing up the car. The 2 older girls played in the front yard, visible to the adults, while Geraldine, the youngest at 5 years old, entertained herself on the side of the cabin out of sight of her sisters. Despite the seemingly normal and relaxed atmosphere, the family's world was about to be shattered by an unforeseen tragedy. The family grew anxious when Geraldine disappeared near their cabin. Despite searching, they couldn't find her. Adults worried as they recalled seeing her by the side of the house, but she remained missing, deepening their concern. The adults scanned the area around the cabin, calling out for Geraldine in increasing panic. Their voices echoed through the quiet forest, but there was no response. With each passing moment, their worry intensified and the forest seemed to swallow their cries for help. Despite their concerted efforts, there was still no sign of Geraldine, heightening the tension and fear among the family members. The forest was very quiet, and even though they called out for Geraldine, she didn't respond. In such a quiet place, they should have heard her if she was nearby, but there was no sign of her anywhere. The family became increasingly worried, so they called the police. When the police arrived, they realized that searching such a vast and wild area would be challenging. They called in professional trackers familiar with the region and requested assistance from the Army in Winnipeg to aid in the search efforts. As the rain fell, washing away clues, the search for Geraldine continued with no success. In desperation, her father made a heartfelt plea to the searchers. Geraldine's father shared that his daughter was frightened of the dark and suggested that she might have sat down and cried, preventing her from moving farther away. Despite this insight, the search efforts spanning 3 days yielded no trace of her, intensifying the anguish and despair felt by her family and the searchers alike. Geraldine, dressed in only a light shirt and shorts, was ill-prepared for the cold 40-degree Fahrenheit temperatures and rain. This heightened the urgency of finding her, as her exposure to the elements posed a serious risk to her health. On the 3rd evening of the search, they discovered footprints believed to belong to Geraldine on a ledge covered with moss, overlooking Fox Lake. The prints suggested that Geraldine, or the child they presumed to be her, had been gazing out over the lake before turning back and descending into the swamp below, where her footprints vanished. On the 7th day of the search, they discovered another set of footprints in the swamp near the area where they had been looking for Geraldine. However, these prints were notably different. They were large, almost gigantic, far beyond the size of any human print. This raised the unsettling possibility that they might belong to an enormous animal rather than Geraldine. The discovery of the large footprints deepened the mystery surrounding Geraldine's disappearance. While there was no conclusive evidence linking these prints to her, speculation mounted among searchers and investigators. Some began to entertain the chilling possibility that whatever entity or creature left these prints might be connected to Geraldine's fate. The discovery of a piece of Geraldine's plaid shirt, found 2.5 miles away from where her footprints and the large prints were discovered, added another layer of intrigue to the search efforts. This find on the eastern shore of Long Lake raised even more questions about the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. The discovery of Geraldine's remains near Long Lake marked a grim conclusion to the search effort. The scene was disturbing, with little remaining of Geraldine, indicating extensive animal predation had occurred. The absence of torn clothing and blood on Geraldine's clothes suggested that animal predation likely occurred after her death. If it had been a wolf attack, the clothes would likely have been torn, and there would have been clear marks indicating an attack by animals. The discovery that Geraldine's remains appeared to have been dragged from a nearby meadow to where she was ultimately found raised further questions. Following the dragline into the meadow, searchers observed that the grass had been matted down in a peculiar manner, suggesting some form of disturbance or activity in the area. Investigators speculated that the large footprint found in the swamp on the 7th day of the search could be connected to Geraldine's case. The footprint, along with the discovery of her remains and the peculiar scene in the meadow, led them to consider the possibility of a large animal or creature being involved in her death. The mysterious circumstances surrounding Geraldine's disappearance and the subsequent findings deepened the intrigue and complexity of the case, leaving investigators grappling with unanswered questions and unsettling possibilities. The finding of a big body print near where they found Geraldine's body suggests a link between the two spots. Investigators think the same thing that left the footprint in the swamp might be tied to her death. This scary idea makes the mystery even deeper and raises questions about what kind of creature or person could be involved. As they keep investigating, officials are faced with the scary possibility of a predator out there in the wilds of Ontario. The second theory proposed that a very big animal, maybe a predator, could have left both sets of prints and caused Geraldine's death. Yet, neither theory completely clarified what happened to Geraldine. With no clear evidence, investigators face the unsettling possibility of something unknown hiding in Ontario's wilderness, surrounded by mystery and doubt. The idea of a giant kidnapper in the woods didn't make much sense. It's hard to imagine someone that big hiding for long in such a wild area. Without clear evidence of a human suspect, doubts lingered about this theory. Investigators struggled to understand what happened to Geraldine, leaving many questions unanswered. The investigators couldn't figure out how Geraldine died because there wasn't enough left of her to find out. They had two ideas. One was that a really big person took her, but that seemed unlikely because nobody saw anything. The other idea was that a big animal got her, but the way she was hurt didn't match up with how animals usually attack. So, even though they looked at everything, they still couldn't explain what happened to Geraldine, leaving everyone confused and sad. Their best guess is that wild animals probably attacked Geraldine, but even the investigators couldn't be sure. They were honest with the family, admitting that they didn't have all the answers about what happened.